I've never been introduced by Santa, so I think that was actually pretty a cool way to start today. Yeah, for those that don't know me, my name is J.P. Warren. As Santa Claus said, I started in the oil field in 2005 at Noble Drilling. My first job was sorting mail in the mailroom, and then from there I went to HSC, and then eventually got into operations where I started actually kind of, is this thing working? Is this thing tracking? No. Eventually I started I started working offshore. I wanted to learn about the industry more. I wanted to get into marketing. In order to know marketing and sales, you got to know the product. So started working offshore, and there was a gentleman by the name of Harold Martin there. He was a superintendent or a rig manager, whatever you want to call it, one of those oil field characters. And he said, JP, the oil field is easy. It's the people that make it difficult. And that stuck with me for many, many years, and I got to get this thing tracking. And that's kind of the basis on what we're talking about today. Track, work, there you go, now it's working. Okay, and that's the basis we're talking about today. Listen, in life, there are opportunities to deal with people, and there's life, and I think currently now, in this world that we live in, we've gotten so good at corresponding, but how have that affected our communication skills? Okay, not just as leaders, but as husbands, as wives, as spouses, fathers, and mothers. How do we communicate effectively whenever we see something? So I saw a need back in 2021, as Santa said, to kind of step out because I saw a huge opportunity to, number one, connect people in this industry. We've gotten very comfortable not networking. We've gotten very comfortable behind screens. And we're having a lot of great transactional conversations, but not a lot of genuine conversations, not a lot of conversations that connect individuals. And so I started a company called Crew Club, which we host operator mastermind roundtables. And we take topics and we sit down and talk about this. It's not really a novel idea. This is something our industry has done for a long time, is get together and converse and not have these transactional conversations. But for a lot of people, that's a new concept. Let's get to the table and not have any solicitations. That has been going on for 3 years, and it's been tremendous. We're about to start a new season. And then I saw an opportunity to really help people with their communication skills on how we communicate and how we work with each other and leadership development. I think our industry keeps on taking hits left and right. We all know that. And with those hits, people put their heads down. People aren't focusing on their own professional development. And that's really an opportunity here for us to take it on our own. So y'all being here today on December 18th, right before Christmas, shows initiative on y'all's part to learn how to kind of have personal and professional growth. And that's how I like this topic right now, because this isn't just relating to our office. This isn't just relating to the teams or an employee that we have maybe an issue with that we need to resolve. This also applies to other stuff too, like our lives. You know, as a father, as a husband, whether it's putting the silverware up or facing down in the dishwasher, so that doesn't lead to this big monumental blowout. Where can we have these conversations that are anxiety ridden, but you can actually grow from them, okay? And again, this is how to navigate difficult conversations. One of the mastermind things that we had last season, we're in Midland, we had Alicia Chalmers, the West Texas asset manager for Conoco, lead a conversation about difficult conversations. And it was a great insight. I'm actually going to be pulling a lot from that conversation for this seminar today. Seminar, talk, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so who has experienced a difficult conversation recently, whether it's work life or home? Recently, yeah? All right. My question is, how did that go? Is that productive? Did that kind of ball up in a lot of maybe tension at first, or lead a lot of anxiety walking into that? So a difficult conversation is, and I'm assuming that this is going to be for kind of the leaders in the room right now, a difficult conversation, a crucial conversation, call it whatever you want, just a conversation. What is it? It's a conversation that, number one, probably needs to happen, okay? If you aren't having these conversations, two things can happen, all right? Number one, you're delaying the inevitable, all right? And what's inevitable? Poor team performance, the person being terminated, you not growing as a leader, all right? And the other thing that's inevitable is, I guess I just kind of listened to the first one, is you not perfecting your skills and growing as a manager, as a leader, as a contributor to the team, okay? Crucial conversations, difficult conversations, it's not just to resolve an action or a behavior on the person. It's to help you also grow. And that was a huge takeaway that we took from that mastermind roundtable, is that it's not the person that needs to be fixed or corrected. It's us as leaders too. How can we learn how to communicate better to improve our team? All right, or how can we communicate better in our marriage to improve our relationships? Okay, so that's why I like this leadership development stuff, because it doesn't stop at the office, it carries on to the house. All right, so high stakes. What do we mean by that? High stakes. So to me, high stakes, and this kind of surrounds this conversation. High stakes to me is that there could be a negative outcome from something not being corrected, right? So whether someone's showing up late to a meeting, someone doesn't have the right dress code, no, not intended, or it's attitude. And I'm noticing this a lot more. So the teams that I work with and the companies that I work with and the people that I coach and work with, a lot of times right now in this day and age, it's attitude people are facing with. It's a poor attitude, it's lack of grit, lack of work ethic, whatever you want to call it. People are challenged with a bad attitude right now. So with that conversation, with the bad attitude kind of being the theme of things, people are very hesitant to have these conversations with their groups, right? You have a bad attitude, you're hesitant about it because this person has a bad attitude already. You don't know how they're going to react after this conversation. You know how they're going to interpret it. And you know what? Might as well just close my eyes and hope things get better. Hope that things resolve themselves, right? But how often is hope really a plan? It's really not, okay? High emotions. This is the belief that we're going to upset someone having these conversations. Belief that, and Darby, if I'm going off or if I need to stay within time, please give me the signs and all that stuff, or someone else does. So the high emotions, really, a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to go kind of walk through this. I'm going to kind of dip in and out of the whole process on how to have these conversations, why you need to be having these conversations. But a lot of this stuff, the anxiety, the high emotions, the high stakes, all that stuff is internal with us, okay? A lot of times we're not having these conversations. Does anyone know why we're holding back on having these conversations with our team? Any guesses out in the audience? Fear? Fear. That's kind of the main motivator. I mean, we can describe it differently. We can describe it again. Oh, I hope they get better. Well, you hope they get better, but that's also a fear of addressing the situation. Fear holds us back, not just in conversations, but throughout life, whether that's taking chances, taking steps on, or taking action, okay? So a lot of this stuff, whether it's high anxiety, whether it's the emotions, whether, oh, I don't know how to walk in this room, all that stuff is brought on from us as leaders. That's internal, okay? Changing how you view the conversation, the difficult conversation with someone, as instead of a difficult conversation or a conversation, oh, they might act this way, they might respond this way, reframing that to say, hey, you know what? This is a great opportunity for this person to grow from this, all right? This is a great opportunity for me to grow as a leader as well. In Midland, we were having a conversation. There was a gentleman saying, hey, listen, I was so hesitant to have a conversation. I had a female drilling engineer, and I don't know what it was. It was an attitude issue. It was something that was kind of like poisoning the team, okay? And there was this constant wall that she had. It was all this. And so what are the two options? Number one, have a conversation, address it and fix it, or try to fix it, try to resolve it. Give them a chance to resolve it. And that sucks too, not having the conversation. How many people out there have had the smallest thing blow up into the biggest issue, and you're thinking, where the hell did this come from, right? That's because there's the conversations that should have been had throughout this process weren't had. So this person, this female drilling engineer, it was very difficult to work with her. So one option is don't say anything and have the inevitable happen where she either ruins the attitude, the morale of the team, and she gets let go, or use it as an opportunity to grow someone and help them, all right? Help them in their career. And that's what this gentleman did. He had the conversation, had a difficult conversation, and we're going to go through how he had that conversation. And now she's one of the top performers. She's now leading her own team, and she's been crushing it ever since. But without that conversation, would she have the chance to actually grow as a team member, grow as a leader? Probably not. So again, a lot of this stuff, a lot of reasons why we don't have these conversations, it's the stuff we work up on our own heads. Oh, they're going to hate, they're not going to like this. Man, we got a good team. It's Friday. I don't feel like getting this on Friday. We'll deal with this Monday. And then Monday comes, you have other stuff going on. So what's holding us back is ourselves. And now we're going to talk about kind of how to reframe these conversations, how to approach it differently, and actually how to use it as an area, an opportunity to grow your team, to make your team more cohesive and effective. So, why else should we have these conversations? This works better if people talk back. Why do we have these conversations? Why is it important right now in 2024, going to be 2025, to have these conversations today versus 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Manage an outcome or manage an expectation, I suppose.
Okay, manage expectations, manage outcome. Do you think we have a lot of opportunity this day and age to have these conversations as much as we had previously?
That's a good question. Probably not to the depth that we used to in the past. What I mean by that is the social media and the video conferencing and stuff like that has sort of changed the dynamic.
Yeah.
I hate it when I can't get into a customer's office and, unless it's a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting. It's a different meeting, it's not the same thing in person.
100%.
But anyway, I just miss those days when you could have a one-on-one across the desk, it just seemed to be a deeper conversation.
But I think everyone does, I think that's something that a lot of people like getting in customers' office or having meetings with customers, not doing this Zoom stuff. I think that is so, and as an industry, that's what makes this industry so special. It's the relationships, right? It's the relationships and the business partnerships we build. We've got a great correspondence. We are so good at corresponding in this day and age. Texting, emailing, we're really good at corresponding. But what's been hit is our communication abilities. And that's why, and honestly, I think the less we communicate, and this is my personal belief, the less we communicate, the less comfortable we are having these conversations, the less comfortable we are having these tension-filled, maybe they might be abrasive conversation, it might upset this person, because, again, our communication skills is lacking, and it's going to continue to lack. I mean, how many people have kids out there, grandkids out there, that are constantly on their iPads, that don't want to go across the street to see if their friends are home, who want to stay on their iPad? That's how they communicate, through memes and through, texting my daughter. She's 11 years old. It's ridiculous. The amount of feedback and depth I get from her, it's horrible. It's a meme, thumbs up here, a heart. That's it. But that's the thing, though. I mean, back in the day, you'd have to call your friend, their house phone, and you don't know who's picking them. That was roulette. You don't know who's picking up the line and asking for it. So communication skills has tremendously dropped. So this is exactly why we need to start having these conversations, because if we're not setting expectations starting out of the gate, and whether you are setting expectations or not, that might not be heard or understood by who you're talking to, your target audience. So again, our communication skills are weakened, so this is exactly why we need to be having these more. And again, these conversations don't need to be this big thing, these big blowouts. You start small. You start small and you address it there. You start something when you see something. All right? So why are we having this? Whoop, that was quick. We're done. It does build trust and accountability, right? I would rather have someone pull me aside and say, hey, JP, this is kind of where we expect you to perform. You're not performing to our expectations. We kind of need you to do X, Y, Z. Versus continuing me walking into work thinking I'm doing a good job and then being hit with, hey, by the way, you're not needed here anymore. Or you're not performing as what we thought. It's been a year. Thanks for coming, or whatever. We're going to transition you to this team. So if you go in, you actually have these face-to-face conversations. It's building trust as a leader, as a teammate, and accountability. I think accountability is huge this day and age. We all talk about that book, Extreme Ownership. Oh, extreme ownership. Oh, accountability, extreme ownership. But in reality, I think accountability started dissipating when we started CCing the entire company off of every decision, right? So accountability, it holds accountability. Hey, Brent, I expect you to, hey, you hired here for X, Y, Z. I expect this of you, and this is why. Showcasing the why behind the decision or the why behind the expectation gets buy-in. It helps, okay? Prevents issues from escalating. I was talking to a gentleman in Louisiana about this, and he just took over a company, XYZ, and there was one teammate that was a problem. It was bad attitude. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's just how he is. That's just how he is. That's his nature, yada, all that stuff. I go, okay, that's fine. How long is this attitude? He's, well, it's getting worse. Okay. Does he work with anyone? Yeah, he works with our entire floor and all. So they're kind of seeing fallout too. So my question for him was, what is your goal to not have this conversation? Like, what is the purpose of not having this conversation? All that's going to do is spread that bad attitude. It's going to spread. It's like that bad apple in the barrel, right? It's just going to catch on. So the faster you address it and the faster you have that conversation, the less likely stuff is going to spiral out of control, and the inevitable is definitely going to happen, okay? And I think it promotes personal and team growth, I think it promotes personal growth as a leader. And at the end of the day, we all should be trying to focus. Obviously, it's about our team, but our team's going to be only effective as we are as leaders. So if you're not stepping up to the plate, learning how to communicate, learning how to set expectations, learning how to have these conversations with your team, you're just letting your team down and yourself. All right. So that's my kind of that's my why on you need to have these conversations. I had one of these mastermind roundtables in Houston. And it's usually about 20 people max and about 15 operators with 5 service companies. And one of the rules is, hey, no solicitations. We're in a room full of engineers, right? Engineers are what? Are they extroverts or are they introverts? Majority of introverts, right? Let's allow space for people to talk, okay? So one of the rules is no solicitations. Allow space for people to talk, and just it's a real good way to gather information. And I don't know if it was the wine that was flowing or what, but one person kept on speaking, kept over talking other people, was shutting people down, not letting people talk. And at the end of it, the whole point of these roundtables is to, number one, facilitate conversation, but have great connections happen, have genuine connections happen that make our industry so special. And at the end of it, someone say, hey, listen, that person, this, that, it kind of ruined the night, stuff. I totally get that. I was kind of pissed off about that. I had 2 options there. Number one, not say anything and say, hey, listen, that was just the night. It was a fluke. Let's just carry on and just see how it happens the next go around. Or I had the opportunity to pick up the phone, call this person, and have a conversation with them. I was very hesitant. I had a lot of anxiety about picking up the phone, calling this cat that obviously wasn't acting in a way that was favorable to him, because he's there for, obviously, not to make the connections, but for work, right? I'm doing him a disservice if I don't say, hey, listen, I see some areas of improvement right now. So I picked up the phone and I said, how do you think last night went? How do you think he thought it went? Oh, it was unbelievable. It was a great night. Oh, man, I was on fire. I was talking this, talking that. I go, how many meetings did you get out of that night? Oh, no one's responded yet. Okay. Let me kind of break things down for you. We walked through it, and it was a very, I'm going to go, the approach that I took, after these slides, but going at it from a growth opportunity. Hey, listen, this is here to help you out, okay? Here's some feedback that I want to provide you for your growth as a salesperson. Like I think this is kind of the stuff that you need to work on. Well, flash forward the next event, and it was very well received. Flash forward the next event, it was a different attitude. It was a different space that he allowed. After that, he had about 3 or 4 meetings from that initial thing. So by being there, by providing that feedback, you're helping your team, you're helping individuals out. When to have them. Any feedback on when we should be having these conversations? One-on-one. Okay, one-on-one. But when? Is it something that you see that you are, like if someone starts coming in late or someone has an attitude and you start seeing kind of the outcome the outfall from their behaviors? Or is it something that you have when you first start noticing behavior that needs correcting? So sooner than later, that's exactly right. So when you notice an issue impacting performance and morale, obviously, because again, people like complaining. It's human nature to complain. You multiply that times by 800 when you enter the oil field. That's all we do is bitch, gripe, and complain, all right? However, that's fine, that's human nature, but once you start seeing that kind of start picking up on your other teammates, it's very difficult in this day and age, because we're not communicating, because we're corresponding, to stay in that cycle, all right? So whenever you do start seeing it kind of impacting your team, that's when you need to start having these conversations, all right? And someone said early, right? Early before problems become big ones. Just like silverware in the dishwasher. That could be a big blow up, but chances are there's some stuff that kind of started setting underneath the surface before it started boiling up, right? Before it started kind of being under the pressure cooker, right? And then the next thing you know, you're not really talking about the silverware, you're talking about something completely different, but you thought you were talking about the silverware. So again, having the right conversation during the right time, for the right circumstances, correcting the right action is extremely important. So it needs to be timely, right? And then clarity of resolution is needed to move forward. Okay. Any conversations, comments, stories that y'all have about a difficult conversation that either went really good or really bad?
Well, I've got to have one soon. I think it's unrelated to oil field, but I have a gardener that cuts the grass, and about 6 months ago, ago, they cut off 2 of the sprinkler heads because they, the risers hadn't got down, so I made mention of it, kind of expecting to be reimbursed.
Mm-hmm.
But, basically she just said, we'll try better. I'll let them know. So anyway, the other day my wife was saying, hey, how come the Christmas lights aren't working outside, And I said, well, it keeps tripping the GFI deal on the outside. I'm thinking, I got some, breaker that's got some grounding issue. So finally I go out inside and I go, heck, the landscapers have basically chopped up the lights with the weed whacker,
Oh.
So I took a picture of it. I'm about to send it to the, and I'm going to have a difficult conversation with that, But it's kind of minor, but it's just one of those things. It kind of brings anxiety.
That's not minor, but it doesn't matter if it's minor or not. The size, for me, the size of the behavior to be corrected doesn't affect my anxiety. Have that conversation.
Excuse me for kind of, I don't mean to hijack your.
Hijack it helps me out.
When you're going to have this conversation, I think it's not a bad idea to kind of pause and because so many times we sort of jump into it before we kind of assess, have I done anything to sort of cause this to be unclear, or maybe I'm allowing somebody to sort of have a little bit more latitude, and here I'm going to call this person out, so it's not a bad idea to, take a look at yourself first, I think, before you, are going to pull the carpet on somebody.
Well, I love how you just hijacked that because that's exactly like the next point. No, I love that because having these conversations, you're right. You think, I got to jump in, I got to handle this right now. But 90% of the work is planning. It's reflecting. It's planning how you want that conversation to go. All right. Just like a conversation with your spouse or a teammate or a gardener. So the first, prepare and plan. Okay. A lot of times too, and you're right. It's what can I do? Where did I fall short as a leader that I didn't provide you the expectations? Was I not clear? So around that table in Midland, a lot of it was, previously in my career, it's like, you got to do this. You're showing up late. Your attitude's trash. You're doing this and all that stuff. That doesn't create, I think, the best employees. I don't think that creates the best team. And I don't think that creates a leader that people want to follow. So looking at yourself thinking, okay, the first step is thinking, where did I fall short as a leader? What can I do differently or improve? And these might be questions that you follow up with the person you're talking to after, okay? So planning and preparing the conversation is probably the most important step that you can do, okay? I think about this before I go into a difficult conversation with my spouse, my wife. It's, okay, well, what is the purpose I'm about to engage in this conversation? Is it prove that I'm right, that she's wrong, that she's right? Exactly, yeah, that's what we want to do. But at the end of the day, that's just kind of, you're going back and forth, and you're never addressing the issue. So if you walk in thinking, okay, my plan is this. My goal for this outcome is us to get past this topic and grow together, right? So once you start planning and you have that goal, did I have that up there? Not yet? Okay, yeah, I do. All right, it's going to be all jumbled up. So having that goal of moving past, of growing together as a team, I think that is extremely important before you walk up here. And honestly, changing your frame, like, man, it's going to suck talking to Jeff about the sprinkler hose. It's going to really be bad for me that all that. If you reframe that as saying, this is a great opportunity for us to talk so I can understand what he's looking for. Okay, you don't want me to cut off the sprinkler heads? Now I understand that. No, so if you address this and you actually set goals, clear goals of what you want to do, I think that just kind of builds more of you as a leader and also sets the expectations, okay? Choosing the environment. One-on-ones are great. I also think kind of having a neutral environment is good so people are more receptive. A lot of times when you actually have these conversations and leading up to it, people are very defensive. People don't like admitting the mistakes that they've made, right? Even if they don't know it's a mistake. People are very defensive. I'm guilty of this. I think a lot of people are guilty of this. So choose an environment that's very neutral, very calm, where you can actually have these conversations, where it's not too distracted, and you can actually have a conversation and not be surrounded by too much noise around you. Growth-focused language. Again, this is taking accountability off of them, putting it on you. What could we do here so this won't happen again? Where did I fall short on providing you the expectation? Right? Where can we do this? Where can we improve as a team so this doesn't have to happen again? Or these outcomes we won't fall in this trap again. All right? Another thing is, Active listening and validating that person, because that person might have not even known. Oh, we did this at my previous company. We did it this way. It wasn't a big deal if I showed up 5 minutes for work because I worked an hour after 5 o'clock last night. So again, active listening, validating where that person's coming from. You might know a lot, or they might have a different way, an innovative way, or a different way to do these, whatever task at hand, right? So again, active listening, validating that person, I think is important because you're showcasing as a leader, you're empathetic, and you care about the people that are working with you, or your spouse, and that you're validating where they're coming from. Any questions, comments, thoughts, gripes?
I mean, I think a lot of that groundwork should be laid before you have to have a difficult conversation, though, right? I mean, like, you should be talking to your staff early on about communication style.
Right.
They actually, how they listen, how they receive messages, not waiting till a difficult conversation is needed to actually get that information.
So what do you mean? So you're talking about like when you're working with your team, constantly having these conversations, like an ongoing, continuous?
Well, I mean, some people don't do well one-on-one to bring up things that they're going to need to think about, or if they're unaware that something's going wrong.
Right.
And that's the first time they hear about it. They're not necessarily going to be able to respond right then and there with something. So, but not even related to anything. Everything right now seems to be difficult. Conversation is a bad thing, right? Which I think before you get to somewhere that's going off the rails, that during onboarding or something, have a conversation with the new staff that come in, new employees as they're being hired, first 90 days, something like that, saying, here's how I like to communicate with my staff. How do you like to receive messages? What's good for you? There's a reason that the meme exists of this meeting could have been an email.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets the same message the same way.
No, I love that. I completely agree with that. That's like, I think that's a perfect world when communication happens, when expectations are set, people are on board, they understand, hey, this is our culture here, this is how I perform as a leader, this is how, as a manager, this is how I expect. I completely agree with that. And having the skill set and the know-abouts to have that conversation, I completely agree. This is for, the one-off when something does happen, when you do need to talk to someone. And I do think a lot of this is planned, but you're right. This is one of those things, if you are having a one-on-one conversation with someone, it's approaching it the right way. Hey, listen, we're about to have, and this is, again, this is not like, if you're having a one-on-one with someone about a conversation you need to have, and you're right, I don't think difficult conversations are something to be avoided. I think they should be embraced because you're only going to learn more about what's motivating that person. You're only going to develop as a leader, and the team is going to be a lot better. The relationships are going to be a lot better. So when you are having these one-on-ones with someone, let's say you do have to have a one-on-one with someone, I think it's very important selecting the environment and having a one-on-one and saying, hey, listen, I'm feeling this way. This is where I'm coming from, all right? As a leader, all that stuff. Is it all right to talk about this right now? We're about to have a difficult conversation. We're about to have a conversation that I don't like to have, that's tough. Are you all right to have that now? You know what I mean? Ask permission because that puts a little, that empowers them a little bit to make the decision if they want to have that conversation right now, regardless, because you're going to have it, but also taking ownership from that because it makes them less defensive. Hey, listen, I feel like I've probably dropped the ball a little bit with you during this process. That's why we're going to have a conversation that I really don't want to have, that I don't like having, but I think there's going to be a great opportunity to grow from it. Are you all right to have a conversation now? All right, let's get into it. So I agree. Having that foundation of communication, expectations set out, however, people often, this is my experience, that whether you have the expectations or communications in set, that doesn't mean people are always going to follow it. So having those one-offs, and this is kind of how we're going to get into it. But yeah, that was a great point, though.
Yeah, I guess maybe it would be if you've already reinforced the goals multiple, usually objectives and not consistently not right, then at some point you gotta have that conversation.
And I think it's important too, whenever you are having these conversations, I think it's extremely important too to kind of say, put it on you first as a leader, right? Take accountability of that. Find out what they expect, and obviously that's the next slide actually. Find out what they expect, but also kind of dive into it a little bit more. So this is kind of the breakdown, what I've gathered from working with people, what I've studied, all this fun stuff. So before you actually have it, have your purpose, have your goal. What is the purpose of this conversation? Is it to address the behavior of this person showing up late? Is it maybe this person has an attitude issue that's kind of detrimental to the team, what is the purpose of us having this conversation? What is the goal of this? At the end of this, I want our team to be a lot more effective, a lot more productive, a lot more communicative. I want our relationship to be more healthy. I want to, whatever that goal is, have that goal, put that goal at the forefront of your mind, all right? The second thing is, so you're not going off emotion. Well, I feel this way. I felt you did this. I feel this way. Gather your facts, okay? If that person's showing up late and it's affecting the team, is there some way to tie some sort of, to quantify that unproductiveness or that tardiness? Gather facts, okay? That way you can actually stay in your lanes, and if they respond a different way defensively or something like that, you can come back to the goal and you have the facts behind you, okay? And this is part of the whole planning thing. Anticipate the reaction. I was talking to a gentleman in Denver, and he would, every morning in his car, he would have 2 to 3 conversations a day, and he would plan how they would go. He would visualize how they would go. And honestly, that's what that pulls us back from the fear. That pulls us back from that anxiety. What anxiety at the end of the day is what? Us not being able to control a future outcome, right? And us trying to control that at the end of the day. We're not going to be able to control how someone reacts, but we can prepare if we predict how they can react, right? So planning, again, is the most important part of having these conversations, okay? So key points, again, that's you navigating the conversation. That's you thinking, okay, well, I'm going to bring up this is going to be the foundation of my conversation. This is going to be, I plan this reaction, and then here's some points I want to bring up and stick to. So that way you're not getting off on tangents. That way you're not arguing about the trash not being taken out when you start off with the silverware being face up, you know? So there's a lot of things here that if you address, you plan, you think about, you have a goal for, it's just gonna make it a lot easier. It's gonna drop that anxiety. And it is how you view things. It's not, again, viewing crucial conversations, difficult conversations, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's reframing it to, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to engage. I don't see Brandon that often because we have 2 different offices. It's a great opportunity for us to connect and actually grow and realign how we are as a team, right? How we are as colleagues. So, what's up?
Are you also trying to recognize what they call the personality styles of people? You know, you've got group A or
Yeah.
the otters and golden retrievers. Like, some people, they're very sensitive to, any kind of what may come off condescending to them,
So that's a great point. That was a part of the conversation we had in Midland. One side of the table was saying, you really have to come this very emotional. Hey, I'm very hurt or I'm upset the way you did that. Some people were you got to come with your emotion. You got to lead with your emotions on your sleeve and just come in and say, hey, listen, like, I feel this way. How do you feel about this? Kind of tiptoe around it. And you have some other cats being like, no, take the emotion out of it. You got to stick to the facts. You got to tell them their expectations and be there and listen to them, but you got to stick to the facts. And then the whole personality differences came up. And I mean, listen, I'm not going to get into how you I'm not going to get into how you approach. That's not true, because that's all we're talking about is approaching conversations. I'm not going to talk about you actually doing it, but I'm going to talk about a good segue to plan. So if you want to lead with emotion, you want to talk to the golden retriever or the otter, that's fine. That's not my specialty yet, but I think that is important to understand who you're talking to. And I think as a leader and as a manager, we probably know our teammate. We probably know what makes them tick a little bit, right? We probably know how they respond to criticism or how they respond to praise. Like I know some people, they respond really well to negative reinforcement, like, come on, hit that ball up. Me, if I'm playing golf, someone negative reinforces me, I just suck more. So I respond very good to positive reinforcement, even if it's a slice, I'll take it. But I think understanding your team, that's what the whole planning it. That's whole anticipating the reaction from the person. I think that's understanding your team and what type of animal or what type of personality they are. I think that's where that makes sense. So do you want to lead with emotion? Or you want to stick to the facts? I think having a blend is important because at the end of the day, as a manager, as a leader, you are human. And I think showcasing yourself as a human, whether it's vulnerable, whether it's accountability, whatever that is, I think that's important to showcase, just to build team trust and build the team morale. So yeah. So whether it's you want to lead with emotion, you want to lead with the facts, that's fine. That's up to you. Try it out. And honestly, I would kind of encourage everyone in this room to have a difficult conversation in the next couple of days. It doesn't have to be a big one. It could be to your gardener. It could be to your child about something. It could be to a colleague. So Try to start having these, see what works for you, see what makes you feel comfortable. And again, frame it as a growth opportunity, because that's, at the end of the day, we need more growth opportunities out there, all right? So you set the tone. So when you have the conversation, set the tone. And I think this is something that I'm guilty of whenever I get in these conversations, and let's say that someone is defensive or someone is responding emotionally, it's very easy for us to match that as humans. It's very easy to say, no, I'll tell you what, I'm having this conversation. I'm right, you're wrong, this is why. Setting the tone and kind of pulling yourself back and saying, I'm going to maintain a tone of neutrality, of growth, of leadership, of someone that cares about this person's trajectory. That's where I'm going to come with. So setting the tone and sticking to that tone is important, all right? And again, I think as a leader, it's important also to understand how to dial these conversations back in once they start kind of getting out of lane. Once they start kind of getting out of the box, next thing you know, you're talking about, Q3's performance, or this person showed up late. You're not talking about that. We're here talking about you today. We're here addressing your situation today. This isn't a, well, they did this, I did this situation. So again, keeping things in theme in the right lines. All right?
And something, excuse me.
Yeah.
To gather the facts, I apologize for going back. But
I dig it.
thinking it's like, there's a couple of words, and if they come up in a conversation and you're on the wrong side of it, they just conjure up this anger. And it would be, you always, or you never.
Absolute terms.
Man, they just,
That works in my relationship with my wife 100% of the time. You never do this. You always do this. You generalize.
doesn't it just conjure up a sense of defense all of
Yes.
a sudden, the wall goes up.
Absolutely.
And so you got to be careful about using certain words in these conversations. Like you said, it should be factual. It's not every time. It's, but if you can document it, look, over the course of,
We're seeing this behavior kind of repeatedly a couple times. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, I think, and especially when you're asking people, hey, listen, I'm noticing this. I've seen this on the team and all stuff. Is now a good time to have this conversation? And yes, it is. Or no, it's not. At least you're setting the tone. And honestly, I would say avoid any small talk. Nothing's worse than walking in an office and be like, hey, how's your family? Oh, man, my daughter's doing great. Oh, I just dressed up as an elf and did this. All this, Hey, that's great and all this stuff. We got to talk about this. So try to avoid small talk, all right? This is again, this conversation isn't, hey, let's catch up, then I'm going to hit you with it's not a compliment sandwich, Like you compliment, you give them the critique, then you compliment them again. So stay away from the small talk. Stay away from the shooting the shit talk, and actually really focus on, hey, we're about to have this conversation. I don't like having this conversation, but it's necessary. It's necessary for us to grow as a team, and I care about you. I want you to get better as an individual, as a contributor, whether it's this company or the next company. Like, this is a growth opportunity for you. And honestly, it's a growth opportunity for you too. So whether you set the stage on communication from when they started or 90 days and all that stuff, people forget. People get in their own habits. People get away with what they can get away with, in my experience, right? So if you have to have these conversations again, bringing it back, setting the expectations. All right, listen actively. I think this is important too, because people don't, my experience, my opinion, people don't do things out of malice. People don't try to do things to hurt the team. People don't try to do things to bring down the morale of the organization, in my opinion. Unless it's just a bad apple, then that probably should have been taken care of a long time ago. So, I mean, we all know apples like that. So, understanding the other side of the table, where that person is coming from, is very important. All right, number one, it validates them. Number two, you are understanding what their reasoning, because they might have a different alignment or a different idea on why it's important to be 5 minutes early to a job, or why it might be important to actually pick up the phone and call a potential customer, right? They might not understand, well, I've emailed them. I've done everything. I've emailed them. They might not understand the expectation. So listen to them asking questions. Hey, why is it okay for everyone to be there on time, but you kind of show up 15 minutes late? Why is that okay for the whole team? Ask questions to try to pull out their motivators. Because obviously you're having this conversation because of an action or behavior that you want to see addressed, right? That you want to see fixed. So try to find out what's going on behind them. What's going on? And there might be one of those things where they might be dealing with something at the house where that's something that obviously we all have our own personal life, but they might be dealing with something in the house where you're not aware of, which is affecting their performance. And if you know that, that can help you guide them, or that can help you either pull back the pressure or apply more pressure in certain areas. Staying calm and focused. Yeah, this is one of those things when people start doing it, start getting defensive, or people don't like being, I'm not going to say attacked, but again, you start using always. You never do this, you always do this. You start assigning blame, pointing fingers, and making them feel like the weakest link. They're going to get pissed. They're going to get defensive, all right? Stay calm, stay focused, growth language. All right, solution focus. Hey, at the end of the day, I want you to be better as a teammate. At the end of the day, I want you to be better as an employee. I want you to be a better salesperson. I want you to be a better project manager. That's why we're here today. So stay focused on the goal, always. Even when you start getting kind of out of the lanes, stay goal focused, and I think that's going to keep you back. So again, after, reflect. How did that go for you? And this is for you as a leader. How did that go for you? Could you have planned more? How did that opening go? And usually, I think the most important part to focus on whenever you are having these conversations is probably the opening. It's probably the first, I would say, probably about 30% of the conversation. How are you opening up? How are you addressing it? How are you making this person feel comfortable receiving feedback, right? Whether it's positive or negative feedback, all right? So where could you improve as a leader the next conversation you have, the next difficult conversation you have? And again, they're not difficult if you actually think, if you're excited about them and you reframe it as a growth opportunity. And follow up with the person. Follow up to see if the message was received. Follow up to see how they're responding to the new set expectations. And follow up, and that also showcases that you care about them as a teammate, that you care about them as a spouse, that you're going and checking on them as a human. You know, how are you doing, buddy? Like, I know we had this conversation. I see some improvement. Like, how are you handling all this stuff? Well, I got to set my mornings back 15 more minutes, but I'm good now. So again, follow up with them, see how they're doing, check in. That just shows, that you care about them as a leader. So I think we're doing 15 minutes of Q&A discussion, and this could be about crucial conversations. This could be about delegation. Well, I just covered a lot of delegation with another group, the importance of delegating, or it could be about whatever. It could be about what's going to be happening in the industry in 2025. So that's kind of did I not cover anything, or is there something that you specifically want to take out of this, whether it's a situation with a gardener or it's something that you're dealing with?
I got something that came up in a conversation on a scout camp out with one of the other dads this weekend, and it kind of reminded me of being a manager in my 20s. And he was talking about a situation that happened with his wife, who had a young manager that they had said that, that manager basically had a difficult conversation with her, but it was about something that he had heard from another employee. And as you're experienced, you realize people talk about each other all the freaking time. And sometimes a lot of it is just, you just gotta take it with a grain of salt, right? But, you mentioned it earlier in the oil field, like, we're a bunch of gossiping girls, even the toughest roughnecks that you've ever met. And
oh, yeah.
And it's just like, and it's like, I don't know the purpose of it. I've never really got down to the root cause of that. But, I think especially as being like an engineer, you want to take action on this thing real quick. You've got this thing. So I think, before you start the crucial conversation, is it necessary? And then are you getting all of the information? And is your brain filling in any of the gaps for the missing information? Because I think it was in our business leadership program, they said that you should start these things off by saying, the story that I'm making up inside my head is, this is going on. And sometimes that's a good way to start the difficult conversation, to say that, hey, maybe I'm being deceived, or maybe, this isn't real, but to start it off and give them a chance to kind of, say, yeah, I screwed up, and then, then you kind of go from there, but, just kind of leave it open to.
Well, first off, I love that, because you're right. That's a very difficult situation to be in when you're having a conversation with someone based off of hearsay. Based on, you don't know if that person likes that person, you don't know if that person's trying to throw that person on the bus, or whatever that is. That's a great point. So having a conversation on hearsay, that's why it's important to gather the facts, right? That's why it's important to go back to the facts. Okay, well, is this true? Is this BS, or is this not BS? And I think, and also, you're right, as humans, we do create our own stories. We get 5% of the information, but yet we already know why they did this, what the downfall is, how they showed up to work, what really happened, why, we create our own stories. We create our own motivators, too, behind people. And most of the time, that's not really the case. And you're right, people do gossip. I remember working offshore, we'd try to find out who's the leak. We would tell one person one thing and see how fast he got back up to the rig floor. It was pretty fun. So yeah, that's again, I think whenever you're in a situation like that and it is hearsay or something like that, I would probably, you're right, probably pause and first off gather the facts to see if that's really warrants a conversation or if it's just kind of smoke and mirrors at that point, unless it's something that you observe as a manager. I would probably have a conversation with the person that's spreading the hearsay. No, seriously.
IRS audit philosophy, right? If you check, or is there, if you
I don't know. Tell me this. I need to hear this.
get audited, or there's,
If you point the finger, you get audited?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's true though. I mean, first off, is gossip ever good? Probably not, right? If you're spreading gossip, that's probably not good. So I think probably having a conversation with that person about that. Did you go the proper channels addressing this complaint? Did you see this? I mean, I think that's probably a good way to approach that situation.
Oh, you have to be careful with gossip as well. We were 15 around lunch table one time, and one guy whispered in the ear of the next guy a sentence. He said, pass it to the next guy. By the time it went around, it was completely different, had nothing to do with the original sentence. I mean, it was amazing how it changed.
Yeah. But that shows, I mean, exactly. That shows, I mean, first off, how good our memory is. Everyone here is different. Our memory is not, I mean, we think, oh, I saw this, I know I saw this, but our memories aren't good. You know, that's how we listen, how we communicate. That's exactly right. It changes. What else? What else anyone has? Yes.
I just want to reinforce a point that you had earlier, and it has to do with gossip as well, that when you're going into these conversations or preparing for something like this, really comes down to are you expressing or showing that you care about the person and what happens to that person? And if you are rooted in that and that you are looking for their best interests and your combined best interests together, then you get the question, okay, do I need to have this conversation, right? Am I just trying to put blame on someone, or is this something where they need someone to tell them this? It's unfair to them that no one goes out and tells them that they are having this impact with their behavior or the way that we're approaching something. And so from that, coming from a place of caring, it allows you to essentially just put up a mirror and say, this is what people are seeing. Is this what you are trying to be seen as?
Right.
And you'd be able to come to it, again, you're taking away a little bit of the emotion and a little bit of the defensiveness as you do it. But I just wanted to reemphasize the point. Coming from a place of caring as you're going into a tension or anxiety-filled conversation, business or personal, does allow you to essentially put yourself in the right place, in the right frame of mind.
Absolutely, I love that. Absolutely. I think, again, just to reiterate what you said, this person that in Midland, the drilling engineer that was having it, if you just left it alone, didn't talk. I mean, how pissed would you be if you got let go, but based on performance issues the past year and a half, and you had no idea about that? No one cared enough about you or your family to tell you.
That's what that organization set up as their culture. If they didn't have their managers have that conversation early, right? Again, and I think it comes back to sort of the pre-communication is a little bit about the culture of the organization. We care about who we're working with. We want the best for the people that we are working with. And that's why we approach these conversations in this way. And that's sort of you'll still need to have them. But if you have that essentially already in your principles or guiding guidelines on how you want to do these things, it becomes a lot easier to say, we care about the outcomes of the people professionally, and here is why we are going into this conversation at that point. You're at least setting a little bit of common ground about why it is you're going there instead of coming in out of the blue. Hey, we need to have a conversation.
Has your approach to having conversations changed throughout your career?
Certainly. A lot of this has to do with personal growth, and I think a lot of the things you're talking about here is sort of how are you reinforcing who you want to be in terms of personal character, accountability, caring for people, those sorts of things. And from that point of view, that will change as you change with your life circumstances.
I think just pulling back from that, even if it is the company or the culture of the company, to have these, hey, we care about you. Take the company out of it. Companies get synergized all the time, right? So at the end of the day, you're right. What type of leader do you want to be? Like, do you want to be the one that shows that you care, that you have empathy for your team or not? I remember I started out in the oil field in 2005, right? And that was, we pay you from again, it's a large advancement from people in the 80s and 90s, but it was still very, hey, hand, hey, worm, head down. And the approach to difficult conversations or any type of conversations, it was fun, don't get me wrong, it was very lively and spicy, I liked it. But it has evolved. It was interesting being at tables, and now it's like, versus like, they better do this or otherwise their ass is gone, or they better, the first, chop her out. That type of language I feel is gone now. Nowadays, you're right. How can I showcase that I care about this person because I want them to improve? And that's just vastly different than several years ago.
I think one of the comments you had up there before was about language, performance enhancing language or something like that. The only thing I would comment on that is that you don't want stilted language to get in the way of clear communication, right? If you
Expand on that.
You could say something